The people who can see exactly what is wrong with a situation are often the ones who stay in it the longest. You already know. That is the strange part. You know the job is wrong. You know the relationship has run its course. You know the environment is costing you something you are not getting back. You have known for a while. And yet here you are, still in it. Still explaining to yourself why leaving is complicated. Still finding reasons why now is not the right time. The assumption most people make is that staying in a wrong situation means you do not see it clearly. For a highly intelligent person, the opposite is often true. You see it too clearly. And that clarity, combined with how a sharp mind processes risk, identity, and change, becomes the very thing that keeps you stuck. The first reason runs deeper than most people would think to look. A highly intelligent person does not just see that something is wrong. They see every dimension of why it is wrong, every risk attached to leaving, every way the alternative could fail, and every reason the current situation, bad as it is, at least has the advantage of being known. The analysis runs endlessly, and an analysis that never stops never produces a final answer. Psychologist Barry Schwartz at Swarthmore College studied decision-making in high-ability individuals and found a consistent pattern he called maximizing, the tendency to search for the objectively best option rather than a good enough one. Maximizers analyze longer, consider more variables, and are significantly less satisfied with their decisions, even when those decisions are objectively better than average. The intelligence that should make decisions clearer makes them feel more permanent and therefore more paralyzing. The exit is visible. The analysis of the exit never finishes. And so the person stays, not from blindness, but from a mind that keeps finding one more thing to consider before it will authorize the move. Knowing what is wrong and being able to leave it are two completely different things. A sharp mind is very good at the first and can quietly sabotage the second. And underneath the analysis, something older is usually running. You have invested in this, years in some cases, energy, effort. The version of yourself you brought to this situation and spent trying to make it work. Leaving means accepting that the investment did not return what it should have. And for a highly intelligent person, that is not just disappointing. It feels like a failure of judgment, evidence that the person who saw so clearly in every other area missed something significant here. Economists call this the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to continue in a situation because of what has already been spent rather than what will actually be gained going forward. Research from the University of Chicago found that people with higher analytical ability were not less susceptible to sunk cost reasoning. In some cases, they were more susceptible because they were better at constructing convincing justifications for why the past investment made continuing the rational choice. The intelligence does not protect against the bias. It makes the bias more articulate. The reasons to stay sound smarter. They are harder to argue with, and so they go unchallenged longer. The smarter the person, the more convincing the case they can build for staying somewhere they already know is wrong. But the sunk cost is only part of it. There is a second trap that operates at the level of identity. After enough time in a situation, even the wrong one, the situation becomes part of the story. The job becomes part of how they introduce themselves. The relationship becomes part of how they understand their own life. The environment becomes part of the structure that makes daily existence feel predictable. Leaving does not just mean changing circumstances. It means dismantling part of a self-concept that has formed around those circumstances. Psychologist Claude Steele's research on identity threat showed that people will go to significant lengths to protect the coherence of their self-narrative, even when that narrative is built around something that no longer serves them. A highly intelligent person has often constructed a very detailed internal story about why they are where they are. Leaving requires rewriting a story they have already told themselves many times. That is not just uncomfortable. It requires a kind of cognitive and emotional reconstruction that a busy, tired mind will defer as long as it can. Staying is not just inertia, it is identity preservation. And it feels from the inside like stability. The wrong situation that has been there long enough stops feeling wrong. It starts feeling like home. And leaving home, even a bad one, is never simple. There is also a social dimension to this that locks people in from the outside. Smart people are often held to a particular standard by the people around them. They are expected to succeed, to stay the course, to figure it out, to not quit. Leaving a situation, especially one they entered confidently, means explaining themselves to people who expected things to work out. It means the capable person admitting that something did not go as planned, And for someone whose reputation rests on judgment and execution, that admission carries real weight. Research from Stanford on social expectation and behavior found that individuals who were perceived as highly competent by their social group were significantly more likely to persist in failing strategies than their peers, not because they could not see the situation clearly, but because the perceived cost of changing course in front of an audience that expected them to succeed was felt as genuinely threatening. So they stay. They keep working at the wrong thing in front of people who are watching to see if the capable person comes through. The audience becomes a trap. And the intelligent person, acutely aware of how they are being perceived, lets the audience hold them in a situation they would have left quietly long ago. Being watched by people who believe in you can keep you in the wrong place just as effectively as chains. And when none of those reasons are enough to consciously justify staying, the mind finds one more. A highly intelligent person looks at a broken situation and sees not just what is wrong, but what it could be if the right variables were adjusted. They see the version of this job that would be good, the version of this relationship that would work, the version of this environment that would actually suit them, and that vision keeps them in it. Because leaving the potential version feels different from leaving the actual version. They are not staying for what is. They are staying for what they can see it becoming. Psychologist Martin Seligman's early research on learned helplessness contains an inverse that is less often discussed: learned optimism in people with high agency. People who believe strongly in their ability to influence outcomes are more likely to persist in difficult situations beyond the point where persistence is rational. The same internal locus of control that makes them effective in many areas keeps them in broken situations because they genuinely believe they can change the outcome through effort and intelligence. They are not deluded. They are capable. They have changed difficult situations before. This time, the situation is not changing, but the belief that it could keeps the exit door from feeling final. Staying because you can see what something could become is not hope. At some point, it is a refusal to accept what it actually is. All of these forces together create something that is worth naming directly. Every year spent in the wrong situation is a year not spent building toward the right one. That is not a dramatic statement. It is arithmetic. But it is arithmetic that highly intelligent people are often reluctant to do, because doing it honestly requires confronting how long they have already been in the wrong place. And that confrontation is painful in a specific way, not because the time was wasted in some absolute sense, but because the person who saw so clearly, who analyzed so thoroughly, who understood so much, still could not get themselves out. Research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human well-being ever conducted, found that the single strongest predictor of life satisfaction was not achievement, status, or intelligence. It was the quality of the relationships and environments a person chose to remain in, not the ones they entered, the ones they stayed in. Staying is not passive. It is a choice that gets made again every day. And for a highly intelligent person who can see exactly what is wrong, the choice to stay carries more weight than it does for someone who simply has not noticed yet. The most expensive decision a sharp mind makes is not the wrong situation it enters. It is how long it waits before it leaves. So when you look at the full picture, what is actually happening? The analysis that never finishes, the sunk cost that sounds like logic, the identity built around the situation, the audience holding them in place, the belief in a version of it that has not arrived, and the compounding cost of years spent waiting for a change that the situation was never going to make on its own. None of it is stupidity. All of it is intelligence turned inward in the wrong direction, used to justify staying rather than to execute leaving. Seeing clearly and acting on what you see are two separate skills. The first one most highly intelligent people have in abundance. The second one is harder. It requires something the analysis cannot provide: the willingness to move before every variable is resolved, before the timing is perfect, before the story makes complete sense. The exit rarely arrives ready. At some point, it just has to be taken. If this described a situation you are currently in, the next video is about why intelligent people self-sabotage without realizing it. What connects the two is more direct than it might seem. Link is right here. Subscribe if this is the kind of content that reaches you where you actually are. And consider what you already know that you have been choosing not to fully act on.